Okay, I am just going to be honest with you. I don't really think the build to Survivor Series this year has been very good. I mean, the reliance on brand versus brand just kind of feels a bit weak, and it doesn't feel like anybody is truly Team Raw or anybody is truly Team SmackDown. I mean, how could they? They only moved and they were only drafted like yesterday. But WWE is intent on doing this every single year, so we will put on our Positive Pete hats and we will predict the show, and we will do it with a smile on our face and some love in our hearts. But hello, my name is Simon Meadow. Welcome to What Culture. Make sure you get in that comment section and let me know your predictions. And let's get into it and Fantasy Book Survivor Series 2021. We shall start with Shinsuke Nakamura versus Damien Priest, or Intercontinental Champion, taking on United States Champion. And if you are just a casual fan and you've only watched a little bit of Raw and a little bit of SmackDown, you probably don't know this is happening. Like, I don't think WWE knows that it's happening, because up to date, we have only had one video saying this is gonna go down. It's almost like they've just gone, well, you figure it out. And Damien Priest wasn't even on Raw last week. He just vanished off the face of the earth, I suppose because he's about to go into a feud with Apollo Crews. But first we have to get through Survivor Series, so straight away you see the issues we're dealing with here. Nakamura too has been more interested about teaming up with Rick Boogs to take on Angel and Humberto, but also, if you look into Shinsuke Nakamura's Intercontinental title defense record, he has defended it once ever since the dinosaurs roamed the earth. I mean, for some reason, WWE just doesn't seem to care about that title. It's like it insulted them one day and they're like, that's it, you shall never get to the top again. But it's this main reason why I do think Damien Priest is going to be victorious. Because he does have that Apollo Crews program waiting, so he can be victorious here, and then turn up on Raw. Apollo will come out and say, I want to have that belt. You know how WWE works. But look at me, this isn't the kind of excitement I should be generating, because Damien Priest is doing really well, and Shinsuke Nakamura is flipping Shinsuke Nakamura. It is going to be a very bad day for the artist though, because I'm giving it to Priest. And it is kind of the same build for RK Bro versus the Usos, but at least we did have a little something on Raw. I mean, they were involved in that 6-man tag team match, and actually there is a huge upside here, because the story can actually be worked in. Because when we sit down to try and dictate who the winner should be, I think it's staring you right in the face. Now, for starters, Jimmy and Jay are going to want to get the W here. Otherwise, when they go back to SmackDown, Roman is probably going to chop their heads off. Whereas when it comes to Matt Riddle and Randy Orton, eventually they should break up. It's one of those rare occasions where WWE will be correct to do so. And when they do, I think it should be Riddle turning on Randy, and you can continue to tease that here. So if Riddle does indeed take another loss here and Randy keeps getting more and more frustrated, eventually Riddle can turn to the Viper and say, I don't appreciate you looking down on me the entire time. And then he can kick him right in the head. And not only will that be a decent surprise, but it also means we can add some seriousness into the Riddle character, which sooner or later we are going to have to do. The Usos can then go back to their gaslighting dad, or whoever the hell Roman Reigns is meant to be this day, and he'll give them a pat on the head, and we can tune into Raw going, well, what's going to happen now? Now, the actual truth of this is that WWE desperately needs to put more tag teams into the tag team division, but I talk about that all the time. I'm just going to leave it RK Bro lose. It's then time for the Women's Survivor Series match, which I do believe is Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Carmella, and Zelina Vega taking on Shotzi, Sasha Banks, Shayna Basler, Natalya, and a TBA. Because even though WWE did that tweet a few weeks ago saying who was going to be on the teams, all of a sudden it was just time to change them around. We're also going to have to put up with so much of WWE's how are they going to be able to coexist? Because look who's in the damn match. I mean, we have Sasha Banks and Shotzi, who are quite literally feuding in front of our eyes. It's also blatantly going to tie into all of this, because I can absolutely see a world where Shotzi screws over Sasha Banks and she's eliminated, but then Sasha Banks comes back and she gets rid of Shotzi, even though that makes no sense. WWE will also probably do the same on the Raw side when Doudrop just walks out and she'll screw over Bianca Belair, and at this point, they'd be able to do it far quicker if there was someone at ringside just with a big signpost saying screw 1997 Montreal. So with all that in mind, I think Liv Morgan should be victorious, and I think she should be the sole survivor, because then when she does go into her feud with Becky Lynch, which we've already teased, she will have a bunch of momentum. And look who else is on the Raw team. You've got Rhea Ripley, Zelina Vega, and Carmella, and they were quite literally having a fight all of a few days ago. So straight away you're gonna go, well, how can they coexist? And then fall asleep because WWE really should never do this again. And if you do boil it down to Liv Morgan versus Shayna Basler, and Liv Morgan wins with the right commentary, I think you can put over that as a pretty big deal. And I know, you're completely right. It probably will end with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment because we can never have definitive victors on a pay-per-view like this. But I'd still take it. It would elevate Liv Morgan. Hopefully she can have a really good one with Becky Lynch. Then she'll be elevated even more, even though she will lose. So this is what I'm going for here. And if you're wondering what about Natalya, come on now, she'll probably be the first person out. And as for the TBA, I mean, it could quite literally be anybody. If Aaliyah got back on the thing, I wouldn't be surprised. And even though it would make no sense in terms of the narrative, it could even be Naomi. As Sonya Deville's like, I'm gonna make you do all this even though you don't want to, even though she probably does want to. I don't know, you tell me. You could pick anybody you want. We then move on to the Men's Survivor Series matchup, and on Team Raw we have Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley and Austin Theory, and they will be taking on Drew McIntyre, King Woods, Jeff Hardy, Happy Corbin, and once again, a TBA. If you read that social media post as I did, you quite literally wasted your life. And let's face it, it's probably going to be Madcap Moss because that's the easiest thing to do. And once more, it's a whole, how can they coexist? Because of course it is. You've got Finn Balor, Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens, who once again were punching each other in the face literally on Monday. So they will implode, but actually this may work if we do base it on what we do in the Women's Survivor Series match, and we just allow one and only Drew McIntyre to go nuts. Because for some reason he wasn't on SmackDown last week, mostly because he was on the UK tour, but I'm looking at it from a storyline point of view. So if he does march into this Survivor Series match and just wipe everybody out, do you know who he will be a good contender for? That's right, our tribal chief, oh how we love him, Roman Reigns. So just let McIntyre kill everyone with the caveat that Balor, Owens and Rollins couldn't handle the fact that they all hate each other, so they kind of have a get out of jail free card, and for once, you actually will have built an opponent the right way. The only thing that really annoys me is, can you imagine if WWE had actually worked this in as a stipulation? So they would have gone, if you are the sole survivor of your team and then you win, you'll get to have a title match against whoever you want. And you can go, oh, we do that with the Royal Rumble and we do that with the Money in the Bank. So what? Everybody loves it. Why can't you do it here? And it actually is better than nothing. That's what they're fighting for here, nothing. It's just like somebody magically told them to fight and their puppets go, oh my gosh, we'll do what we're told. But yeah, give it to Drew McIntyre, allow him to fight Roman Reigns, and a small part of my tum-tum actually says, you should have Drew win. I like everything with Roman, but he's gotta lose eventually. It just comes down to the story. Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair is also on this show as the Raw Women's Champion takes on the SmackDown Women's Champion. And I don't know what to make of this anymore, because it started as a work, then it became a shoot, then it went back to a work, so now I suppose it's a work shoot. It doesn't really matter what you think about either of them either, because this is a top tier matches with two of the top women in all of WWE. To the point, I am absolutely terrified that it's going to end in a disqualification, that it's going to end in a distraction, or it's going to end as a count out, because you know what WWE always does. They have two stars, they don't want to lose, so they just hit the shenanigan button. But really, we should not be doing that here at all, because if you are going to get invested and intrigued in this, you can actually work it either way. Let's say Becky Lynch does lose, maybe you could use it as a catalyst to actually turn her back babyface, which she should be anyway. But if Charlotte Flair loses, you can then start teasing, well, maybe she's gonna lose to Toni Storm. I mean, that would never happen in a million years, but at least let me believe, at the moment it's just so telegraphed. So ultimately, as long as we do get out the other end of this with a definitive winner, I will be a happy chap, but this is a prediction show. I ain't going with my heart, I'm going with my head, and it is going to end in either disqualification, distraction, or my number one pick, and the one that will make me want to smash my own brain in, double count out. I bet you that's what happens though. I bet WWE ties into this whole, oh my gosh, they hate each other for real, and they start having a proper fight on the outside, so much so they forget the ref has gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Didn't need to go through all of those numbers, and therefore they both lose, or they both win, or they draw, whatever the hell you want to say. And yes, that will suck. It will absolutely suck, because the whole point about seeing champions collide is that you do get a winner. You go, can you believe it? But I don't think WWE realizes that at all, So yes, I am going for even Stevens. And I'm also going to contradict myself, because when we get to Roman Reigns versus Big E, WWF champion, taking on Universal champion, this just comes down to wrestling hierarchy. And while, to me, Big E should win this because it would elevate his character no end, WWE sees Roman Reigns as the be-all and end-all, which goes back to my point a few minutes ago, and he will win. There's also absolutely going to be shenanigans and nonsense in this too, because WWE will overthink it and go, well, we also have to protect Big E. And once more, you're now going, well, if they want to protect Big E, and they want Big E to look strong, why wouldn't he beat Roman Reigns? But don't start thinking about it like that, because you'll just shut down like a robot. And it is a massive shame, because Reigns can absolutely be defeated at this juncture, and nobody's going to care. In fact, you could actually use it to fuel forward his story. Can you imagine how you'd feel about watching SmackDown on Friday if you were about to see this nutcase after he had suffered a loss? I mean, he'd probably find Paul Heyman and just, I don't know, rip off all of his clothes and chop him up into little pieces. That's a little bit much. I can't see it happening though, because I do think there's some kind of end game here, a bit with Brock Lesnar, The Rock, or maybe even someone like Bron Breakker. But I still am intrigued about this, because for one reason or another, I'm only 99.9% sure about this one, and that 0.1% is just nestling right there in my head. Because I suppose you could have the usual Usos interference that goes wrong, and that allows Big E to win and also gives Roman Reigns his own get-out-of-jail-free card. Or maybe Brock Lesnar comes back, or maybe Paul Heyman makes a mistake. He's on the phone to Brock going, I miss you, I love you, and he doesn't do what he's meant to do. I don't know. The point is, if Big E is going to be victorious, you're going to have to do something stupid. But once again, I like to get these things right because I am a competitive man, so Roman Reigns will beat Big E. Will I be sad about this? Yes. I suppose maybe a Seth Rollins could run down there and cause distraction too. My word, it's probably going to be that one because that ties into the tease between Roman and Seth. Let's just draw a line under it. Our tribal chief, head of the table, the man who lives on the island of relevancy, which makes absolutely no sense, has his hand raised. None of this matters though, because I want to know who you think is going to win at the Survivor Series, so make sure you get in those comments and let me know the winners, the losers, and your own personal choices. And like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com and we will keep you up to date with everything WWE related. Make sure you come follow us on Twitter, and we have a bunch of Survivor Series videos. Watch them all and get caught up. My name is Simon What Culture. Thank you for watching me as always. Enjoy the pay-per-view, even if you haven't been that excited about the build, because we only have one life and entertainment is good. That was a weird thing to say. I'll see you soon.